It had been many days since Stannis Baratheon left Dragonstone in search of glory. The nights were long and cold, but Stannis had made the journey with determination and the hope that he would one day achieve greatness. As he continued his journey, Stannis was plagued by doubts and fears about what the future would bring. He knew that his claim to the Iron Throne was not as strong as it could be, but still he held on to a sliver of hope. For days he rode through villages, forests, and plains, never stopping to rest. He did not even pause when he heard tales of creatures in the night or monsters in the forest. Instead, he simply kept going forward until finally reaching Winterfell. It had been said that there would be great battles fought in Winterfell, and only those who were brave enough to fight in them would have any chance at success and glory. Stannis knew this to be true. If he wanted to prove himself worthy of claiming the Iron Throne, then Winterfell was where it all began. He paused for a moment outside of the castle walls before steeling himself and stepping inside. Inside there waited enemies from houses Lannister and Bolton, as well as allies from House Stark. But Stannis knew this to be a battle of justice versus injustice, a battle between good and evil, right and wrong, no matter what side they may choose to stand on. The sun began setting as Stannis prepared for war, preparing himself mentally by reciting prayers, asking for strength, courage, and victory over his adversaries, whatever form they may take. As night fell, the soldiers sounded their horns signaling the beginning of battle, and with it came chaos. Swords clashing against shields, men screaming orders or crying out in pain. It seemed like an eternity before dawn broke again. But when it did, Stannis stood victorious amongst his people once again, having proven that justice can prevail against overwhelming odds. With his victory, Stannis felt a sense of relief and joy wash over him. But even in the midst of celebration, he still remembered the task at hand, claiming the Iron Throne. He knew that his battle was far from won. There would be more battles to fight, more enemies to face, and more suffering to endure before he could safely sit on the throne and call himself king. He gathered his people around him and swore an oath. He vowed to protect them all with everything he had until they reached safety. No longer were they simply fighting for glory or power. They were fighting for their freedom and future security. From then on, wherever Stannis went, he carried this vow with him and pushed onward towards what destiny had in store for him, no matter how daunting it may seem. The weeks passed, and soon Stannis and his people were on the brink of achieving their destiny. As they drew closer to King's Landing, fear began to grip the small army. Were they truly prepared for what was about to come? Stannis knew he could not cower in the face of fear, no matter how heavy it weighed upon him. Instead, he must remain brave and true in order for them all to make it out alive. The day came when the forces met on the battlefield, ready to fight for their honor and fate. Stannis felt his heart swell with pride as he watched his soldiers fall into formation and prepare for battle. He stood tall by their side, a testament to courage and dignity even in the face of certain loss. But despite the odds stacked against them, Stannis' people fought with great strength that day and ultimately emerged victorious over their opponents, a victory that would change everything forever. As the sun set on that fateful day, Stannis Baratheon had finally achieved what he had set out to do. He had won the Iron Throne, something no one ever thought possible. It was a momentous occasion for all of Westeros, a moment in history that will never be forgotten. With the battle won, Stannis and his people marched towards King's Landing with a newfound sense of hope. As they drew closer, they could see the dreaded figure of Ramsay Bolton standing atop the walls, a malicious smirk on his face. Stannis called out to him, "Let me pass through these gates, and I promise that you will be spared." But Ramsay refused and mocked Stannis in return. "I have no need for mercy or your offerings of peace. I have come here to take what is mine, and I will not stop until it is mine." Stannis scoffed at him, filled with determination to end this once and for all. He declared war against Ramsay, who laughed sadistically in response. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned by Ramsay's forces, Stannis was undeterred. He was determined to carry out justice for all those who had suffered at Ramsay's hands. After an intense battle filled with blood and fire, Stannis emerged victorious yet again, thanks in large part to his unwavering courage and strength of will. With a heavy heart, Stannis took off his helmet as he surveyed the aftermath of the battle. It was time to claim his prize. The Iron Throne was finally his. After claiming the Iron Throne, Stannis was finally in a place of power, and he commanded his forces to break camp for King's Landing. As they marched forward, he was joined by Melisandre, the Red Woman who had been a driving force behind the war effort. She looked upon Stannis with admiration as they marched together towards their destiny. Stannis stopped to greet his daughter Shireen, who ran up to him with open arms. "Father," she exclaimed with joy, relieved that he had made it out of the battle unscathed. Stannis hugged her tightly before introducing her to Melisandre and sharing stories of how they had won the battle against Ramsay. During their conversation, Stannis' wife Selise emerged from the army ranks and approached them with a warm embrace for Shireen which filled the air with love and happiness. The family then continued on together towards King's Landing, a clue at what would come next for Stannis Baratheon, fulfilling his destiny of becoming one of the greatest rulers Westeros has ever seen. After taking the Iron Throne, Stannis was determined to rule fairly and usher in a new era of prosperity. He set up a council to ensure that justice was served throughout the Seven Kingdoms, and his decree was well received by the people. However, not everyone welcomed Stannis' rule with open arms. After several months of hard work rebuilding the kingdom, he faced opposition from an unlikely source, his own brother Renly. Renly declared war on Stannis and rallied an army against him. In the final battle between them both, Renly emerged the victor, aided by a mysterious shadow creature that killed Stannis before vanishing into darkness. With this tragic turn of events, Renly became king of Westeros, a reign of terror that lasted for years until it was eventually brought down by Daenerys Targaryen. But even today, many still remember with sorrow the death of Stannis Baratheon, a king who had worked so hard to bring justice and peace to Westeros. Despite Stannis' death and Renly's rise to power, Melisandre still remained a powerful presence in Westeros. Despite her loyalty to Stannis, she continued to serve as an advisor for his successor, a dangerous position that she was willing to take. However, soon enough it became clear that she was pushing an agenda of her own. This culminated in the most heartbreaking event of all, the burning of Shireen at the stake by Melisandre's own hands. The crowd watched in horror as Shireen pleaded for mercy, while Melisandre chanted and fed the fire with more wood until there was nothing left but ashes and smoke. In a few short moments, a beautiful young princess had been taken away forever, all because of Melisandre's sinister plan. Shireen's death devastated those around her, showing just how far Melisandre was willing to go in her quest for power. It also marked a turning point in the war, one that no one would ever forget. After Renly's death, many assumed that the beloved king was gone forever. But it seemed the fates had other plans in store, for soon enough a mysterious figure appeared in Westeros, one claiming to be Renly returned from the dead. It soon became clear that this spirit was not actually Renly himself, but rather his shade, summoned by a powerful dark magic used by Melisandre and her followers. The shade had been sent as an apparition to battle Stannis in an attempt to reclaim the Iron Throne for Renly, though it ultimately failed and dissipated into nothingness once again. Though Renly's body may have perished, his memory lives on throughout Westeros, and his shade stands as a testament to the power and resilience of those who seek justice in times of darkness. Now that Stannis is dead, there are still many who are vying for the Iron Throne. The main contenders now are Cersei Lannister, Daenerys Targaryen, and Euron Greyjoy. Cersei has been on the throne since the death of her husband, Robert Baratheon, and is currently trying to hold on to it by any means necessary, including executing enemies, destroying rivals, and bringing in new alliances. Daenerys Targaryen has spent much of her life living in exile before finally returning to claim what was rightfully hers, the Iron Throne. She has made surprising allies as she journeys back toward Westeros and plans to use them to help her reach her goal. Lastly, there is Euron Greyjoy, who seeks to take over Westeros with his Ironborn fleets and destroy anyone who stands in his way. Though he lacks allies or friends, Euron's ambition and ruthlessness could be enough to give him an edge. Whoever wins this conflict will change the fate of Westeros forever. Only time will tell who will ultimately claim the Iron Throne for themselves.